We'll kick things off with probably the surprise result of the weekend. QPR 3, Norwich City 0. 3-word reviews for QPR. Dino says absolutely bloody marvellous. Lench says fan dabby dozy. Charlie says Rayan Coley baby. For Norwich, Aaron on our Patreon says our worst performance. Lewis says can't defend away. Just QPR's third win of the season. Their first at home since May, Justin. And they're out of the bottom three for the first time since September. What a result for the Marty Party.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Again, like first home win of the season in the league as well is just incredible. And the fact they had to do it losing Giancello earlier on in the game as well after 13 minutes, had to deal with that blow. But I thought they managed Norwich really, really well. They managed a very talented attacking team with a lot of, almost very, very clinical. It was with a fair bit of ease, and I think that pragmatic approach that Cifuentes decided upon in this game really, really worked. It was a great result, great performance, and great for Rayan Coley as well.
Yeah, I think 3-0 flattered QPR quite considerably, if we're being honest. Norwich were very off it. Like, seriously off it. They did have 2 goals disallowed for offside. One of them looked on to me, but you'd be hard-pressed to say that Norwich deserved something from this game because they were just so poor. Angus Gunn in particular was really off it. Norwich fans have been pining for his return when he got injured, but he was all at sea for QPR second and really shouldn't be getting beaten for the third one. So he didn't have a great game at all. Still, a cracking result for QPR. Do not get me wrong, because Norwich had scored 10 goals in the previous 2 games and looked like they were getting back on track prior to this one. And I think you're right, Justin. QPR did a job on them. And in the last 3 games, they have started to look like they're getting back to the team from last season, haven't they? Much more solid at the back, and they're doing it with a pretty lengthy injury list as well. So they're going in the right direction again, Peachy.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And again, I mentioned that pragmatism, and it's not a criticism of Cifuentes. They were fantastic defensively in this game, and they as I mentioned, they managed all of Norwich's mercurial strengths and dealt with them. Boy Signs was quiet. So too was Marcondes on the other flank.
Quiet is quite an understatement, really. I was having a look at Boy Signs' stats. No shots, no dribbles, no chances created. He was completely anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's that, he's instilling a different mentality into that team, and it's really worked, and we've seen it in previous games as well. The form has really picked up, performances have picked up, and these are the rewards. Massive wins at home.
Yeah, and it helps when you have a 19-year-old ready to step in and score a brace at the first time of asking, doesn't it? Rayan Coley coming off the bench for this one. He's made quite a few sub-appearances for Rangers, but these were his first goals in senior football. And yeah, looks a lively player, Peachy.
Yeah, he does. And it's incredibly important to have players who can step in with this, or not confidence, but you need players who are ready to come in. Giancello going off injured, Coley replacing him. He's come in and he's took his goals incredibly well. You got to look at that first run for the header, for example. He bypasses that Norwich defence and flicks it beyond the goalkeeper. It was a really good run. In his second goal, he took it relatively well. I mean, maybe goalkeeper could have done better, but when you've got players who can step in like that, who are young, who are confident, it does allow Cifuentes to breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, he's got massive hair as well, doesn't he? Just looks really cosy in there. I just want to climb in and make a nest. But yeah, he's highly rated at Loftus Road, has played for Algeria's under-20s. Marty Cifuentes has been criticised a couple of times for not giving him much of a chance at QPR, despite there being so many injuries. And judging from what Cifuentes said afterwards, it sounds like Cifuentes thinks he needs to work a bit harder behind the scenes. Might not be the case, but that's the sense I was getting from reading between the lines with his comments after the game. But yeah, this was a fantastic performance from him coming off the bench. And it's also got to be said he's out of contract in the summer, which is interesting, but a fantastic moment for him. And certainly one to keep an eye on. So a great result for QPR. Got to give a mention as well for Jimmy Dunn as well, who scored QPR's opening goal. His father actually passed away this week, and the funeral was the day before this game. But he told Marty Cifuentes that he wanted to play and pointed to the sky when he celebrated. So a very emotional week for him, and just a really good result for QPR in general. As we say, their third win of the season, and that's just how valuable it gets for them. Norwich, what do we think happened here with them, Justin? Do you think it was just an off day? Because it was definitely a bad day.
Yeah, it was a bad day. I don't think they were outplayed. I think QPR took their moments better than Norwich. And I think the simple things in this game were handled a lot more efficiently and effectively by QPR than they were with Norwich. The individual duels, the set pieces, turning possession over, I think QPR had a better handling of that than the Canaries did. So yeah, I think it was very much an off day. I think it's going to be a theme of this show, but I don't want to draw too much attention to it. But I do think conditions impacted quite a lot of teams and how they played. And I think Norwich may have fallen under that category a little bit. I don't think it's an excuse or a worthy excuse, but when you've got key players like Boyer Signs just not in the game at all, and the way Norwich like to play, exploiting spacing behind opposition, I think the conditions would have made that a lot harder for Norwich. So that also played a factor, but ultimately comes down to those individual duels. They just lost too many.
Yeah, I can see why you would say that, Justin, but I do think, QPR are dealing with exactly the same conditions, aren't they? So I don't think it's that much of an excuse for Norwich. Having said that, they were just so bad. I could not believe how bad they were in this game, which, as I say, was surprising considering they had just come off the back of back-to-back wins, 10 goals scored in that time. So, yeah, very surprising for them to be as off it as they were here. But, we'll see if they can bounce back again in midweek. Let's go to Portsmouth, who got just their third win of the season with a 3-0 victory at home to Bristol City. 3-word reviews for Portsmouth. Jacob says, Pompey's staying up. Ryan says, now Bishop's back. Scott says, up the Blues. For Bristol City, Phil on our Patreon says, gutless, embarrassing performance. Yeah, we just said the 3-0 win for QPR probably flattered them a bit, but this wasn't the case in this game. If anything, the scoreline actually probably flattered Bristol City, Justin. Yeah,
it was a really incisive performance from Portsmouth, and a really good game from them. One that maybe surprised me because of, how poor they made Bristol City look. I don't think it was a case of Bristol City being very poor. I think Portsmouth really did a number on them, and I think that the goals that Portsmouth scored really does display how well they pressed. They pressed Bristol City really high, and they did it relentlessly and kept pushing them into making mistake after mistake after mistake, and 2 goals came from those mistakes. And I think it was that competitiveness and that willing to run hard and do those numbers really did pay dividends for Portsmouth there. It was a great performance, incisive, and Bristol City maybe unlucky not to get a goal themselves, but I think Portsmouth fully deserving of a win, massively.
They definitely did. They were certainly helped by Bristol City being a bit of a shambles at the back at times. It's probably one of the worst showings you'll see from a defence all season. They were a complete and utter mess at times. They got caught in possession on so many occasions and were really causing their own problems. But Portsmouth punished them for it. Good to see Colby Bishop on the score sheet again. Josh Murphy got a goal and an assist for the second game running. Just so many positives to take from a Pompey perspective. Pompey perspective, that'd be a great name for a newspaper, wouldn't it, Justin? But the Pompey perspective looks like this. It's 7 points from an available 9. They've won more games in the last 3 than they had done in their previous 14. And are now just 1 point from safety. The Portsmouth revival looks like it's on, Justin.
It does. I don't want to draw or make this the sole reason as to why they are improving, but the impact that Colby Bishop makes is massive. Obviously, he's scored and assisted in this game, and his assist actually for Josh Murphy was really smart because obviously Portsmouth robbed Jason Knight of the ball again in the midfield. Colby Bishop turns and plays a lovely sort of, I won't say a chip pass, but almost daisy cuts it into Murphy's pass, and all Murphy's got to do is keep his composure and it's a goal. It was a great assist, and obviously his first one again is from another Jason Knight mistake, but composed to put it away. But the impact he has on this team going forward is massive, and that makes everybody else breathe a huge sigh of relief because you've got this target, you've got this outlet, you've got this guy who can hold the ball up and take the pressure off of you, and I really do think that does make a huge difference. But the key thing from Portsmouth here is their willingness to battle, and that was something that I think has been missing in certain games this season. But it was on display here.
Yeah, you mentioned Colby Bishop there just now. I don't think it is a coincidence that their upturn in fortunes has coincided with his return to the side, because he's just such a focal point to the team and obviously brings goals as well. But the attacking three behind him have been in fantastic form. Josh Murphy's got 6 goal contributions in his last 5 games now. Callum Lang is having a great season. Matt Ritchie rolling back the years as well. And Freddie Potts in midfield is a good young player as well, actually. So going forwards, they've been brilliant. Still a bit shaky at the back, but that can be worked on. I think they have improved loads recently, and they've got loads of appetising games coming up as well. And got to be said, there's plenty of teams above them who are seriously struggling, aren't there? So I'd be feeling very encouraged if I was a Pompey fan, Justin.
When you consider the fact that you've got Colby Bishop coming back in and these results are improving, and you get into that busy period of within December as well, it's absolutely massive that they do start to turn this form around. And they've not beat an easy team in Bristol City as well. They've not done it by fluke. They've absolutely hammered them. They've absolutely hammered them throughout the game. And it's that sort of confidence that you start to breathe into the team. And when you start to think about the likes of Oxford, obviously their game was postponed this weekend, but their results have been hard to come by. Derby, their results have been hard to come by. It's going to breathe more and more confidence into the Portsmouth team. So it's a really, really good time to be hitting form.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got Norwich at home on Tuesday night. Bristol City had won 4-0 last weekend, and then this happens. You go to Portsmouth and you lose 3-0. Is this a good example of the inconsistency, Justin, which has left Bristol City stuck in mid-table mediocrity for such a long time, do you think?
It's a difficult one, because I think the drop-off in this game is a surprise, because despite them not picking up too many results in recent weeks, the performances have been relatively consistent. And I think, again, they were heading in the right direction. But this performance was really poor, and you pointed it out, but they were so naive time and time again. And like you said, that inconsistency that can or has plagued them for years, you do start to wonder whether that's coming back. I know we've discussed whether or not they can be a playoff chasing team this season. Until they really start to convince you consistently, that's a key word, isn't it? It's just hard to imagine them firing up the table. It's really difficult. Like I said, the amount of times they were caught in possession in this game is ridiculous. They didn't learn their lesson. And if you're not doing that within the games you're playing, you're not going to get results. They're going to keep being punished. And unfortunately, that's going to impact consistency, confidence, and everything else.
Yeah. 6 wins, 7 draws, 6 losses. 24 goals scored, 24 goals conceded. It's very mid-table energy from Bristol City, isn't it? But look, it is annoying, because we've given Bristol City a fair bit of praise on plenty of occasions this season, and I do genuinely believe they are breaking out of that mid-table mould. But if they are going to do that and start looking towards the playoff picture, they seriously have to get some consistency going, don't they? Because when it was that thing for years, wasn't it? Streaky Bristol City, that many people were coining them because they were so, under Lee Johnson, where they were just so up and down, and 1 minute they'd be fantastic, next minute you'd be like, what on earth is happening here? They need to try and rid that from the game, because consistency is what gets you into the playoffs ultimately. If you are inconsistent, then you will never break out of that mid-table mould. So that's something they've got to work on, but I do believe they are getting there slowly but surely this season. We've always thought it may be a step too far, perhaps, but as long as they're in the conversation, I think Bristol City fans will take that, because it's a bit different to what they've had in recent years, obviously. On Sunday afternoon, West Brom and Sheffield United played out a 2-2 draw, although that really shouldn't be a surprise with West Brom now, should it? Quite an entertaining game, though, this actually, wasn't it? Both teams gave it a good go and were on the front foot, weren't they, Justin?
Yeah, it was. I think Sunday games delivering at the moment. I've criticised them earlier on this season, but they're producing a fair bit of drama. Obviously, had a late goal last weekend with Sheffield Wednesday. Really good football on display. And in this one, you've got 2 teams who are gunning for promotion in whatever capacity, going hell for leather for a game. And again, looking at conditions a little bit. Not really surprised, considering Hawthorns is the I'll always throw this stat out, it's the highest ground in the country, so no surprise there. The conditions are
above sea level, just for clarity.
Oh yes, above sea level. But really good game of football, and again a good display of the Championship. Just annoying that it's competing with the top division in terms of coverage.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's a good point, really, because we had the late goal last week from Sheffield Wednesday, didn't we? And then we had that crazy Leeds Swansea game as well just before that. So, Sunday games are really whetting the appetite right now, aren't they? But, it was a good, fun game, considering these are two of the best defences in the league. It had the potential to be a really dull affair, but it just wasn't. It felt like either side could have really won this up until the final whistle. So a good watch, and both teams deserve credit for going for it, really. And Sheffield United will probably be satisfied with a point because it means they go back top of the table, the Hawthorns' difficult place to go. And it means they're also unbeaten in 8 and continue their superb form, Justin. And I think it's about time, Justin, we do something which we probably should have done quite a while ago now. It's been the elephant in the room for a considerable amount of time. We probably deserve to have this egg in our face at this stage, because at the start of the season we did our now annual infamous manager rankings, which always go down well. And in those rankings, we had Chris Wilder down as the 20th manager we would like in charge of our club, out of 24, of course. And safe to say, he's made us look very silly doing that now, hasn't he?
I think he has, yeah. And, fair play. I guess in our defence, we just weren't sure what Chris Wilder we were going to get. If we were going to get the Chris Wilder from 2021 to the summer of 2024, this summer, then, or early summer, if you like, then I think it would have been a disaster. But I think he's changed and he's gone back into Sheffield United almost completely fresh for himself. The club seems completely fresh as well, because obviously they had this huge turnover in leadership within the squad. The old guard of Chris Basham, John Egan, Ollie McBurnett, they all left. They all left, and they had to replace them. And I think everything's fresh now about the football club. And obviously they've got fresh new owners coming in as well. It's breathed a sigh of relief into everyone involved in the club, including Chris Wilder. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a much nicer, happier Chris Wilder. He just seems happier post game. I've not seen any mardiness, any aggy behaviour from him, aggravated behaviour, if you like, if you don't know the Midlands lingo. He just seems a happier human being, and a happier Chris Wilder, I think, is a good Chris Wilder.
Yeah, and he's not been happy for a few years, has he? That's got to be said, because Middlesbrough didn't go very well. Watford was a bit of a disaster, and then he had next to no positive effect on Sheffield United last season after coming in. So it looked like he was a manager who was, quite frankly, past it, didn't he? He was more known nowadays for falling out with people and just being annoyed at referees eating sandwiches in front of him, that kind of thing. But what he's done this season has shown he still knows what he's doing, because he's got Sheffield United so organised. They're controlling games brilliantly, and he's getting the most out of the players at his disposal. Plus, he is doing it in semi-difficult circumstances, with the club's takeover taking a while to come through. And I mean, the thing that's got to be said is, as well, considering how abysmal last season was for them, to turn things around as much as he has done is remarkable. The shift in mindset is so impressive, and that's all down to Chris Wilder. And I think you're absolutely right, Justin. He's just refreshed the club, hasn't he? And I cannot praise him enough for what he's done this season. And we'll admit it, we were wrong. Doesn't happen very often, but we definitely did get it wrong with old Chrissy Wilder.
Yeah, get it. I mean, you're just looking at this game in isolation. He's got 4 fullbacks by trade. In the entire defence: Burrows, Robinson, Gilchrist, Siriki. I know people will say Robinson's a centre half, but coming up through the ranks and various clubs, he was a left back. So he's still having to adapt things. He's got several injuries. Arblaster's out for the season. Sidney Peck's come in. Kiefer Moore wasn't quite working out. He's brought in Tyrese Campbell, and he's getting Tyrese Campbell best form of his career since he picked up his first knee injury. Gus Hamer's a sort of an auxiliary left midfielder. There are tactical innovations, if you like, and he's inspiring personnel into this team. It is a peak Chris Wilder side we're seeing once again. And as I say, when you've got a peak Chris Wilder and a peak Sheffield United team, it's really exciting.
Yeah, it is. Tyrese Campbell, you just mentioned there, did go off with an injury in this game. It didn't look great. So we'll wait and see what any updates are on that. But he's been in such good form. It'd be really bad timing for him now if he were to pick up another injury, wouldn't it? But the good news for Sheffield United is their proposed takeover has received full clearance from the EFL in the most abrupt statement ever released a couple of days ago.
It's all about the detail.
So, yeah, that's all you need to know. So it looks like it's only a matter of time before that happens. So just goes from great to amazing for Sheffield United, really, doesn't it, considering how the season's gone for them. Just in West Bromwich Albion, unbeaten in 11 games. The downside is 10 of them have been draws. 10 draws out of 11 games. That is ridiculous, isn't it? This is some of the most insane form I think we've ever seen at Championship level. I can't remember in the time that we've been doing this anyway, seeing anything like this.
There was a period with Millwall, I can't remember, it was last season, it was under Gary Rowett, it would have been the season before last, where they were just seemingly drawing a game every other game, and it got quite ridiculous at one point. But we do ask for consistency in this league, don't we? We were just bashing Bristol City for not being consistent. How can we possibly criticise this run of form West Brom are on? Because they're being consistent, right? That's the headline here. So, that's the key takeaway. They're unbeaten and they're consistent. It's the recipe for a playoff chasing team, isn't it? Just win more games. That's it.
Yeah. I think you are semi-right, Justin. Like, this is consistency. And you look at the table, they're still, hanging around the top 6 picture, aren't they? So that means that this form isn't having a detrimental effect, but at the same time, 10 draws from 11 games is just unbelievable. It says a lot, doesn't it, that they've drawn a game like this against Sheffield United, which is a really, really good point. But then in that time, they have also drawn, against Oxford, out of form Cardiff, away at Luton. There's some good draws in there. There's some pretty average draws as well, below average draws, I should say. So, yeah, I mean, they're not conceding many goals, but they're not scoring many goals in that time either. So this game against Sheffield United was a step in the right direction, but how long can this continue for? It's absolutely ridiculous. 10 draws from 11, Justin. I'll say it one more time because I just can't deal with this. But consistency is what gets you promoted from this division. Maybe not being this consistent when it's just draws all the time. That's what I would say. So hopefully we do see West Brom get some W's on the board instead of D's in the near future. Interesting report I've seen from the last couple of days, Justin. Carlos Corberán to Wolves. Interesting. Quick thoughts on that.
My immediate thought was, that's really logical. That makes sense. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, there's no way because of the rivalry. That would be horrendous for everyone involved. And I don't think the Wolves fans will take to him, even despite him being amazing. And I don't think the Wolves hierarchy are daft enough to go for him. They are relatively switched on. It would be a good appointment on a football level, but when you get down into the nitty gritty of it, i.e. the rivalry, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, whether it actually happens or not, I'd be very surprised. I just don't see that happening. It doesn't surprise me that Carlos Corberán's been linked with Premier League jobs because I think he should have been linked with loads of other jobs sooner than this. Obviously, West Brom fans won't want me saying that, but that is the case because I just think he's such a talented manager. I would hope that this doesn't happen because I think it could go wrong for all parties if that is the case. But I'd be surprised if it did because of the aforementioned reasons that you've given there, Justin. Right, it's now time for us to check out how our second-tier bet builder and multiple with SBK got on, which included our game of the week, as well as Justin and I's 2 bankers from Friday. So our bet builder was on Burnley v Middlesbrough, and a £10 stake was due to return £150. We had both teams to score, which did come in, obviously. We had Finnazaz to have a shot on target. That also came in. We had Middlesbrough to have over 10.5 shots. They had 10, which is annoying, isn't it? But it didn't matter anyway because we also had Burnley to win. So no luck on our bet builder. On to our multiple. SBK, we're doing a free £2 bet on Championship accumulators this weekend. And that £2 on our multiple was due to return £33. And we did 4 selections for 1 week only. We had Leeds to win, which came in. Sunderland to win, which also came in. But we had Sheffield United to win, which wasn't correct. And Burnley to win, which wasn't correct as well. So no luck this week, ladies and gents, but we're back with another round of picks in this coming Friday's preview show with SBK. Right, Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about a win for Burnley and Tom Watson. Sir Tom Watson. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, where I'm going to walk through all the weekend action from across the Championship. But it's now time for us to reveal the winner of our latest edition of Jameson's Weekend Hero, because every single week we're asking you to nominate a fellow Championship fan that you believe deserves recognition. Now, that could be the person who drove you to a recent away day, or it could be a friend or relative who got you into supporting your club in the first place. Whatever it is, we want to find out. So to nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero from this weekend, send us a voice note now on WhatsApp explaining your nomination. The number is in the show notes, and of course, if we pick you, you'll win a bottle of Jameson to share with your winner. But on to this week's nomination. We've got this message from Harry, who wanted to nominate his friend's dad, Tim.
All right, guys. My name's Harry, and I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan. My weekend hero is my mate's dad, Tim Critchley. For the 3 seasons I went to watch Wednesday play, Tim drove us to every home game and the odd away game as well. Tim always kept spirits high, from providing the chocolate to get us through the boring 0-0 draws to slipping over in the half-time challenge, much to the delight of the whole cop end. Tim was also the manager of my local Sunday League team, but based on the state of our results, he was definitely better at criticising the Wednesday manager on a Saturday than being one on a Sunday. It definitely wasn't my performance as a centre-back that cost us the games. Tim was instrumental in providing me and many of my friends the joy of both watching and playing the beautiful game, and gave a lot of his time up to do so, and asked for nothing in return. And for that reason, he is my weekend hero. I've moved away now, so don't go to many of the games, but Tim and my mate are still as dedicated as ever. Cheers, guys.
Good stuff. Thank you for that, Harry. Tim, what an absolute legend. Justin, I tell you what, it's an underrated experience going to a game with your friend's dad. I've done that with your dad on a few occasions, haven't I? And he's always good crack.
Yeah. They provide a commentary you've never experienced before, and it's always just views that you've never experienced before. But again, like just having to go through having to go through, I would say, the embarrassment of falling over in front of 25,000+ fans is enough to be given hero status. And then
lasting memories,
a lasting memory, and then being able to laugh it off, I imagine. What a man.
Yeah, I've got to say, going to a game with your dad is a lot more enjoyable than going to a game with your brother, who has your brother. He won't mind me saying this. Is one of the biggest moaners I've ever been to a game with in my life. I got earache after standing next to him at Accrington Stanley away many years ago. Justin,
you're nurtured as supporters, aren't you? I've gone down a different path. My brother's an angry man, but that's just how it is sometimes. It's just how it is. But it's to say, you go with family, and you can't choose them.
No, you can't. But I suppose you can choose who you go to the games with, and it sounds like Tim is an absolute legend for that. So with that being said, let's raise a glass of Jameson, ginger and lime to Tim. Have a quick swig. Justin and I will just quickly. Delicious, as always. I bloody love Jameson, ginger and lime. Anyway, remember, you can nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero right now by sending us a voice note on WhatsApp. The number is in the show notes. So that is just 60 seconds explaining your nomination, and you'll be in with a chance of winning a bottle of Jameson Christmas present. You must be over 18 to enter, UK only, and T's and C's apply. Let's go back to some of the weekend's action then, Justin, and we'll go to Ellen Road, where it finished Leeds 2, Derby 0. 3-word reviews for Leeds. Richley on our Patreon says, all too easy. Ashley says, the Welsh Maldini. Cameron says, won at 12:30. For Derby, James says, PE teacher tactics. Ollie says, boring defeatist Derby. Yeah, it turns out the fact it's an early kickoff has no bearing on the game at all, Justin. Really shocking that, isn't it? Let's
take a step back for a second. If Derby had offered anything in this game, based purely on the probability of it being a lunchtime kickoff and Leeds struggling at lunchtime kickoffs, if Derby had given them something, given them a game, this would have been very different. I can guarantee that. It's not my fault. It's not my fault Paul Warren waved the white flag before the game was even kicked. He waved the white flag in his pre-match interviews, for goodness sake. It's not my fault. The lunchtime kickoff rule still counts. It's 1 win in 8. Let's see how the next one holds up.
Not sure. Still not sure Leeds struggling with early kickoffs is actually a thing. And I don't think it would have mattered whether Derby put in any effort to try and win the game anyway. By the way, did you know Leeds and Derby were at the centre of something called Spygate 5 years ago, Justin? It was good of Sky to remind us every 5 seconds during this game.
What's Spygate? Sorry?
Oh, don't start. If you wanted to know, you should have watched Sky on bloody Saturday lunchtime. They gave us full coverage of it from 5 years ago. Anyway, this was a breeze for Leeds, wasn't it, really? Despite it being more than breezy in Leeds on Saturday, this was a breeze.
Fucking was a breeze. Very windy. Leeds. I mean, the Leeds were frustrated in the first half hour of the game. Never in trouble of losing it. No, mind. That was never going to be a factor for Leeds. It was always going to be a matter of when, not if, Leeds scored. Their press is what I think actually won them the game. Derby were hopeless in possession. Probably one of the worst performances I've seen in possession from a team this season. Bearing in mind, Plymouth went to Leeds and were also completely shit. But yeah, I think the win came down to the quality of the press and the intensity of it and the relentlessness of it, because they didn't give Derby a second. It was just an uncomfortable game. Probably unjust that the lead came from a set piece, because I thought the play and the dominance deserved something a little bit more than that. But fair credit to them. They were very impressive throughout the game.
Yeah, getting an early goal to settle the nerves is not more applicable to any club in the Championship than Leeds United, is it? The longer they go without getting a goal in a game they're expecting to win, I don't think any ground gets more nervy than Ellen Road. So scoring near the end of the first half was massive, and then the second goal shortly afterwards pretty much killed the game at half-time, didn't it? Because Derby never looked like getting back into it. Some of that may be down to the tactics, and we'll talk more about them in a bit, but it's also because Leeds just kept them at arm's length, more than arm's length, really. Mm-hmm. I don't think Leeds were great, but they really, really did not need to be. Joe Rodon opened the scoring for Leeds. It's his first goal in English football, Justin, which, I will be honest, has completely blown my mind. He had scored on loan at Rennes in France a couple of years ago, so it wasn't his first goal. But for this to be his first goal in English football at the age of 27, I'm just astonished by that, particularly because he's so good in the air, Justin. But you know what? Let's lavish some praise on him, Justin, because aside from the lack of goals, he is one of the best centre-backs in the division, isn't he? Possibly even the best.
I think on a technical level, he's probably the best. I mean, Pascal Struijk, his defensive partner, is probably going to have a conversation about that, because he's also an incredibly gifted centre-back, and it is a very, very close contest between the two. But just more on the Joe Rodon scoring factor, I don't think he's ever played for teams who have been exceptionally, or needed to be exceptionally good from set pieces. Swansea were very sort of a ball-playing team, never really gifted from set pieces. Went to Spurs, didn't really play much. And then obviously with Daniel Farke at Leeds, again, set pieces has never been a huge thing. So despite his stature, it's not really a surprise to see him not getting on the score sheet very often. But going into his performance in this game specifically, I mean, Derby didn't offer a lot. He was exceptional. I know you're going to use the term Rolls Royce at some point, if you haven't already. But I think despite him not having to deal with too many duels with Derby players, I think it was his composure at the back. It allows Leeds to stay composed. They kept the ball. They rebuilt attacks. I'm just looking at his heat map now. His heat map is literally the middle third of the pitch, which I would imagine is quite rare for a player. But Derby was so deep. No, they needed several quarterbacks, and Joe Rodon was one of them. And yeah, as I say, Leeds' composure on the ball, ability to keep Derby at bay was I wouldn't say largely down to Joe Rodon and Pascal Struijk, but yeah, they played a big part in that.
Yeah, well, there have been plenty of occasions this season where Leeds have had issues going forwards, but defensively they have been sublime, particularly at Ellen Road. Yes, it's 7 wins in a row now, but they've also kept 6 clean sheets in that time. And perhaps most remarkably, they haven't conceded more than 1 XG in a game at Ellen Road this season. They are also by far the best in the league at the back, according to the underlying data. And the majority of that is down to Joe Rodon and Pascal Struijk, 2 players who I deem Premier League ready already. Because if Leeds do go up this season, then one position they do not need to worry about at all is centre-back. But with Rodon, may have raised a few eyebrows when Leeds forked out £10 million for him in the summer, but it's just common sense, really, when you're getting probably the best centre-back in the league, and he's shown that on so many occasions this season. And if he's adding goals to his game as well, Justin, then boy, oh boy, he's going to be the all-round defender, isn't he? So a great win for Leeds, and a great boost as well for them, because Ethan Ampadu was back in the squad for this one for the first time since his nasty injury a couple of months ago. He didn't come on, but good to see he's nearly there, because that will be a huge plus for Leeds when he's back up and running. And Leeds got a massive game on Tuesday night. at home to Middlesbrough. Boy, oh boy, that is one of the games of the season, that, isn't it? So that's definitely one we'll give a lot of attention to on Thursday. Not a great day out for Derby, Justin. It's now 3 losses on the bounce, 1 win in 10. Let's be honest, nobody was expecting them to get anything from this game, Justin, apart from maybe you with your stupid lunchtime kickoff theory. But it doesn't ease the pressure on Paul Warne, which has been building recently, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I'm going to get my fan head out the way first. Needs to go. Sick of it. But going to the more measured Championship observer, Justin, when you come out and say that your team is a League One team with sugar on it, what message does that send to your fans? What message does it send to the owner who rescued the club? And what message does it send to the players who are trying to improve? But also, what does it say about you as a manager? If it's a League One team, Paul Warne, that's a reflection on you, not the players. I saw a defeatist attitude from him. I saw a manager who lacks self-belief. And there was quite a profound thing said on the radio, and I can't remember who said it, but they said, if you do what you did, you will get what you got, which is essentially saying there's no difference from Paul Warne's Rotherham team to this Derby team. There's zero. Not one element of managerial or coaching evolution has taken place for Paul Warne and Richie Barker and Matt Hamshaw and Andy Warrington, the coaching team. And this is why he's a League One manager. I mentioned it earlier, Cifuentes is a perfect example of a manager changing his philosophy in the season to get results. Paul Warne will not do that.
Well, pretty scathing. I mean, nobody was expecting Derby to get anything at Leeds, were they? But the lack of fight was really poor. In the second half, with Leeds 2-0 up, it seemed to me like Derby were just trying to keep the score down in this one. It didn't look like they wanted to get back into it, did they? Possibly because they didn't know how to. And I've said this before, but neutrals need to know that with Derby, it is a bit strange because even when Derby have been doing well, obviously at a decent start, got promoted last season, there's always been that undercurrent of, is this guy the right man for us? Because he's never going to convince the majority of the fan base. He just never will. And his brand of football is one of the big reasons behind that. So yeah, it's pressure that's growing on Paul Warne, without a doubt. I don't think he's in grave danger of losing his job at this stage, but the Boo Boys are getting louder at Pride Park, aren't they, Justin? Yeah,
they are. And it's not a surprise because, again, like you have to inspire as a manager of a football club, you have to inspire everyone. Tim Volter didn't do it at Hull, did he? He pissed everybody off. He pissed the players off. He pissed the fans off. Paul Warne is a nice human being, really lovely man. Doesn't make you a good manager, though. I've said this time and time again. And his lack of fight, his lack of belief he's instilling into the fans, I think is seeping into the pitch, which is why they're not picking results against teams they need to be picking results up against, like Sheffield Wednesday, like Plymouth wins this is, and obviously Swansea as well. It's they're the games you've got to be judged on. This Leeds one, you've got to be lucky to win at Ellen Road, I think. You've got to be lucky to get a result. There have been several teams that have shown that side of fortune this season already. It was never going to be a win for Derby, but you have to present a team that is going to allow fans to believe, and Paul Warne didn't do that, and he's not done that as manager of Derby County.
They've got Burnley away on Tuesday, so a good chance it's going to be 4 losses on the bounce, and that won't help things with the Warne out brigade at Derby. One thing Paul Warne did say before the game, he said, Derby v Leeds, it weirdly feels like a derby, which is great considering we're called Derby. What is he talking about?
Yeah, that is the worst thing I heard a manager say on Saturday, and as a manager in the Championship, he called his own fans thickos.
It's true. It's very true. I don't get what he was trying to say there at all. It's like when your intrusive thoughts come out and you actually say them, and you're like, did I say that or did I think that?
Yeah.
And Paul Ward did say that for some reason.
It's when you're trying to be funny at a party and it doesn't quite land, and you try, and then you speak quickly after it because you know it wasn't funny, and now it's there. Everyone's heard it. Everyone's going to hear it, and you're now a meme, and you can't escape it, and you have to go back down to League One to get rid of it. Sorry, I've taken ahead.
Let's go to Sunderland, who got their first win in 7 at home to Stoke. They won 2-1 thanks to a brace by Tom Watson. 3-word reviews for Sunderland. Dan on our Patreon says back in business. Another Dan on our Patreon says Jack Clark regen. Ralph on our Patreon says wonderkid development factory. Aidan says, who was Clark? Yeah, Sunderland got the 86th minute winner, but they'll be wondering how on earth they didn't win this earlier, Justin, because they missed so many chances prior to that, didn't they?
They did. It was frustrating, wasn't it? It's frustrating. I mean, just looking at the numbers now, they missed 5 big chances. So for them to leave it so late I think it's an indictment of the young squad that they've got. You know, they're not going to hit the high notes every single time they're in front of goal or taking on a player, etc. But 25 shots to 11 in this game, Sunderland. Yeah, it was dominance. The XG completely wipes the floor with Stoke. It is one of those where I do think having a young team has impacted the quality of the game, but didn't impact the quality of one individual. As I say, big game, huge response as well. Winners run, defeat last weekend, so many injuries, and this game presented its own challenges, and they came from behind as well. It was a huge win, and really positive on Sunderland.
Yeah, well, with Sunderland going 6 games without a win, it started to look like this might be another frustrating day at the office for them. So it must have been a huge relief when they finally managed to convert one of those great big chances that they had in front of goal. And the 2 goals came from 18-year-old Tom Watson, not to be confused with the golfer or the former deputy Labour leader. Justin, where are Sunderland getting all these wonder kids from? It's ridiculous, isn't it? Share the love around, guys. You save some of the wonder kids for other teams in the division. It's ridiculous.
It's not really a surprise. There's been time and time again where good players have come through at Sunderland. You have to go back 10 years. Jordan Henderson, Jordan Pickford. More recently, the Josh Madger, Ballymumba. They've all come through. There's more that I'm missing out. Dan Neil in the first team, Chris Rigg, that's the one I'm completely forgetting, the most obvious one, and now Tom Watson. But there are countless examples of other players coming through the Academy of Light and breaking into the first team. But I think what really does shine a light on it now is the fact that the club is putting emphasis on it. Not only are they signing young players from other clubs to bleed into their first team, they are still producing their own. And it's a credit to the strategy and the consistency of the strategy and the belief in the strategy of the football club, because players like Tom Watson are now getting a chance, which may not have happened at another club, but it will do at Sunderland. And Tom Watson's repaying the faith with a good performance here.
Yeah, well, when Christian Speakman came in, the sporting director at Sunderland, he did say he wanted the academy to essentially be the heartbeat of the club, and he's definitely living up to that promise with the amount of academy players that are in the first team now. But even though Sunderland have been winless in a little while, Tom Watson is someone who's really caught the eye for me. Even before the Stoke game, he tore Sheffield United apart last week, and that's one of the best defences in the league. He was just running past defenders like they're not there. He is very, very impressive, and he's really got this chance in the first team because of the injury to Romain Mundell. And boy, has he taken that chance. I mean, the thing is, you would have expected before Mundell to walk back into the team when he got back fit. I'm not sure he will do now, considering how well Watson's been playing. I mean, the only criticism I've got of him is he really should have more than 2 goals, because he has missed a couple of great chances in the last handful of games, but he looks a phenomenal talent, which is just what they needed. Another wonder kid, Justin, alongside the 2 future England midfielders they've got in the team already, and various other players who will almost certainly be playing in the Premier League at some point. It's just selfish, really, at this stage, isn't it, from Sunderland? So yeah, big win for them. It leaves them 2 points off the top. And we haven't spoken about Stoke in a while, Justin. It's just 3 wins from 15 for Narcis Palach since he came in. That appointment perhaps not having the desired effect.
Stoke be stoking? No, that's the term I would use. You are right. It's probably not had the impact they would have had, or they would have wanted it to have. That being the hierarchy, but it's an inexperienced, boardroom. Jonathan Walters and I think it's not Tony Coates, but Coates' son. It's an inexperienced upstairs, which isn't really ideal when you've got an inexperienced manager coming in either. That being said, that's not going to impact results. Quite a strange comparison, but I did see someone put on social media, Thomas Frank won 14 points from his first 15 games as Brentford manager. Palach has won 15 points. So I think maybe we do still have to be patient, see where we go. I think I do still disagree with Schumacher being sacked. But I also do think that Stoke look a lot less interesting now. Very possession based, and maybe less reliable as well. I thought Steven Schumacher was getting a good balance, but Palach does need time to get his ideas across. It's not his fault the club is dysfunctional.
I would agree. He does need time, and it's too early to really make a firm judgment on him. But I am rather concerned about Stoke. They haven't lost many games, in fairness, under Palach, but I think they've actually been a lot poorer than their results suggest. They've only won 2 games on expected goals since Palach has come in. One was at home to Derby, who offered absolutely nothing in that game. The other was that 6-1 battering of Portsmouth, which is proven to just be a freak result, hasn't it, since then? Otherwise, they've been second best in most games. And I mean, think about it, Justin. How many times this season have we said Victor Johansson's had a blinder in this game? And look, we love Victor Johansson on this podcast, but when your goalkeeper has been by far your best player this season, that's a problem because it means he's been bloody busy. And he has won them a lot of points, almost single-handedly this season. So defensively, they have been really poor. I've been very disappointed with Walter Berger this season. He's not kicked on like I expected. Million Manhoff's not been great recently. There's probably a few other players who I could pick out for criticism here. But I mean, Stoke are just having another Stoke season from the looks of it, aren't they? Although it wouldn't surprise me if they're looking over the shoulder a bit as time goes on. I just have not been impressed with them at all in the time that Palach has been there, Justin.
Well, no, neither have I. And I know we spoke about him probably like 4 or 5 weeks ago now. And we were discussing this and we were saying then he still needs time. But, are those ideas getting across? I think Steven Schumacher was a very different manager where he wants his teams to be on the front foot, but he was finding that balance they needed because they were leaking goals at times. And he did really well at doing that. And then Palach had come in and they're completely different ideas. And this is why I was talking about inexperience because, continuity is important. Steven Schumacher was a completely different football mind to Alex Neil, who was a similar yield to Michael O'Neill, etc. Whereas Narcis Palach is, again, I think it's a very different philosophy to what Steven Schumacher was trying to deploy. And, trying to bleed that into players is a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing. And this is why I think the dysfunction of the club, we can't keep blaming managers for them being poor at Stoke. I think it comes down to the ownership, unfortunately.
Frank Lampard got his first win as Coventry boss away at Millwall. That finished 1-0. 3-word reviews for Coventry. Sky Blue Cal on our Patreon says, much better overall. Zoe says, super Frankie Lampard. Lee says, Sky Blue Heaven. A great first win for Lampard, Justin, and worth saying a great place to get it as well. Just the third away side to win at the Den this season. So yeah, decent scalp for old Frankie Lampard, Justin.
Yeah, difficult place to go at Millwall, and I think Coventry fully deserved the game, deserved the win. Sorry, I think it was a tight first half, but second half they really came out, and it was probably a game that needed the quality. Again, speaking about conditions at the start of the show, conditions really impacted this one. You spoke about Victor Torp and the corner flag. They're very open corners. They're very open corners at the Den. But the moment of quality came from Jack Redoni and his cross for Ephraim Clark. But yeah, I think this was a case of big relief because they were banging at the door throughout the game, Coventry. And as I say, them coming out in the second half playing a lot quicker, not allowing high winds in the Millwallness of the Den to really impact the game, I think is a huge positive. I cringed a little bit at the end when they made him do the 3-fist pump, the fans. I think after one game, you want to bleed positivity, but I cringed a little bit. I'm not a celebration police, celebrate. But I thought we were done with that old 3-fist pump, but obviously not.
Every manager is doing that pretty much nowadays, aren't they? Steve Evans is the only one, I think, who gets away with doing it.
He's innovative.
But yeah, Millwall, yeah. He is the innovator, Justin. You're absolutely right. He's the pioneer of the 3-fist bumps. But yeah, Millwall were a bit patched up here, it's got to be said. They were essentially playing 4 fullbacks in defence and were also missing Romain Essa, who's essentially been their best attacking player this season. But Coventry were much the better side. It wasn't much of a game until the second half, but when it did open up, Coventry restricted Millwall to very little. So a great first win, definitely room for improvement, but a lot to build upon as well, Justin, I would say.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I was alluding to it earlier on in the show is the fact that Neil Harris wasn't too happy with supporters, but the fact that they were patched up, missing several key players, including Jake Cooper. And I think in the first half, despite it being tight, they probably edged the opportunities, but I don't think they've got the quality that Neil Harris needs. At time and time again, they do create chances. This game aside, really, I don't think they're at their best. But I just don't think they can compete with the onslaught that Coventry came out with in the second half. And again, I don't think that's down to Millwall, Neil Harris. I think that's down to personnel available, squad depth, and probably squad quality as well. I think Neil Harris has done really well to get what he's got out of the squad so far. But you can tell they were missing some key players in this game.
Yeah, you've already given a spoiler for Neil Harris's comments that he made after the game. But here it is for anyone who's not seen it yet. He said, "You miss Romain Assa, you miss Japhet Tanganga, and you miss Jake Cooper. 3 players that probably get in any championship team. Just a reminder to people, the thickos, that when you take the 3 best players out of the team, that this is Millwall Football Club." Thickos? You can't say that.
It's one of those occasions where he's said what he thinks, and he shouldn't have, because that's going to piss a lot of Millwall fans off. And Millwall fans, unsurprisingly to the average listener, not forgiving, are they? And Neil Harris is, he bleeds Millwall, so it's a shame that he's caught in this tornado of potential bad PR from his own fans. Really incredible quote.
I mean, he is right, isn't he? If you take the 3 best players out of any team, then it does massively set aside back.
But that's why you don't say what you're thinking. We're all thinking it. Don't say it.
Yeah. No, but I think it is worth him bringing it up afterwards, because I think it is a fair excuse, and he has mentioned in a few weeks as well, in recent weeks, that Millwall are lacking a lot of depth. But calling some fans thickos, yeah. Very tactful, shall we say. And on Friday night, Justin, Burnley and Middlesbrough drew 1-1. Quite a good game, this, actually. Certainly by Burnley standards, anyway. Didn't really go how I expected it to, because we both fancied the Burnley win in the preview show, but it's Middlesbrough who will probably be looking at this thinking, we could have won that.
Yeah, I thought both sides gave as good as they got, really. Middlesbrough created a fair few chances. I thought Burnley had some really good opportunities, and some indecisiveness probably cost them a win, actually. But it was a really good tactical battle, and one that we expected to happen. What I found funniest out of this game is Burnley's impenetrable defence. One of the best or the best defensive championship start. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it was a right back in Anthony Dijksteel who scored. A man who hasn't scored since 2019, and he scored by falling over. against the impenetrable Burnley defence. That's what I found funny in this game. But as I say, I think both sides had really good chances. I thought Burnley maybe could have edged it. You might disagree on that. The reason why I think that is because Hannibal and Anthony had chances to play the ball to teammates, but they shot instead. I think with some more incisive decision making, as I say, I think they could have come away with a win there.
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think Middlesbrough were definitely the better of the 2 teams in this one. I mean, I did mention recently how Burnley have perhaps not been as sensational defensively as their clean sheet record suggests. They've not been a shambles by any means, but I think they probably deserve to have conceded more than they have done in recent weeks. And I think this game was another example of that, really. It wasn't like Borough were robbed by any means, but if one team was going to win, I think it was definitely Middlesbrough. You did mention it earlier, Justin. Anthony Dijksteel got Middlesbrough's goal, only the 2nd goal of his career. Him and Joe Rodon in the same weekend, Justin? Like bloody buses, aren't they? But you know how it was a running thing this season that we've been talking about Ryan the Ambe at Derby, and how he was nearing the record for the most championship appearances without a goal. Well, I think Anthony Dijksteel may have been the next active championship player in that list. And I thought it was a very well taken goal. You say he was falling over, but I think he improvised really well.
I think he had to improvise because he was falling over. That was a man who was unbalanced. And I think if he wasn't falling over, he wouldn't have been in, I say in inverted commas, as composed as he looked. There's no way he meant to dink it. And I think if there was no contact on him from a Burnley player and he was completely sound in his structure running, that he would not have put that away, I'll be honest.
Yeah, you mentioned how he was completely free in the when he's against the Burnley defence, which is one of the best in terms of goals conceded so far. Maybe they just thought, well, there's no chance he's scoring because it's Anthony Dijksteel. And then he goes and does that. Incredible. As I mentioned earlier, Middlesbrough go to Leeds on Tuesday, a proper how's your mother of a game, that, isn't it? But Borough will fancy their chances with their recent form, so definitely one to watch. By the way, Middlesbrough, reportedly the front runners to sign Louis Barry on loan in January, just in case their attack needed boosting anymore. Let's go to the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter, because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked was this, Justin: who is the best centre-back pairing in the Championship? Ahmed Hodzic and Suter, Rodon and Struijk, Egan Riley and Estevez, and Cooper Tanganga.
Oh, Egan Riley and Estevez. I process that as John Egan and Estevez. In fact, John Egan's not started. It's CJ Egan Riley. Completely irrelevant. I will go with Struijk and Rodon. But if I wanted people to back me in a fight, I would definitely go with Ahmed Hodzic and Suter, which is a completely different question.
Oh God, yeah. Bloody hell, yeah. They'd be exactly who you want on your team, wouldn't you? I would go Rodon and Struijk for me personally as well. I've had quite a few people get in touch with their suggestions, Justin. Plenty of people saying Mepham and Ballard, or Mepham and 09 at Sunderland. Basically loads of other shouts for anyone whose team their own team, basically. Rodon and Struijk got 40% of the vote. 33% went with Ahmed Hodzic and Suter. 15% said Egan Riley and Estevez. 12% said Cooper and Tanganga. I think Cooper and Tanganga underrated there, because those two are by far Millwall's best players, aren't they? Apart from maybe Romain Essa. Let's go to the next question, which is: who has the best academy in the Championship? Leeds, Middlesbrough, Sunderland, West Brom.
I will go. It's between Sunderland and Leeds, but in terms of pure reliance and needing to bleed players through, it is Sunderland. But in terms of quality of player, you might say Leeds.
I did forget to put Sheffield United in that, which is quite
really
a bad one. I think Sheffield United may be the shout there, actually. Might they? Okay, I'll go with Sheffield United, even though they're not on the poll list. Leeds are definitely worth a shout as well. But I mean, based on current form, you got to say Sunderland, haven't you? Considering who they produced in recent years. Sunderland got 51% of the vote in that. 27% went with Leeds. 12% said Middlesbrough. 10% said West Brom. And finally, which do you prefer on a plane? Aisle seat or window seat?
Being a long-legged man, or long-legged human, actually, anyone who's got long legs will know this. Aisle seat, and I think the aisle seat's actually underrated. I really do. Window seat's horrible, claustrophobic, cramped, minging, smells as well.
I completely agree. If it depends where you fly, and if it's a long haul flight, aisle seat every day for me, because you're getting up multiple times. If it's just a short 2-hour flight, say, then window seat I'm fine with, because it'll be one visit to the loo tops. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, I would go aisle seat for me personally, because I fidget a lot. And I need the aisle seat so I have as much room as possible, Justin. 62% of people said window seat, 38% said aisle seat. Aisle seat, massively outdone there, unfairly, I would say. Anyway, Patreon subscribers, hang around, because we've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Zamora Time. We'll be talking about Ruben Sellers watching his new side lose again, a very unhappy Danny Rule, and a big injury blow for Luton. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Zamora Time every single Sunday. Head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. Otherwise, that's just about time for us here on the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday to talk about all the midweek action from across the Championship. So we look forward to seeing you again for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.